Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
Today, we're covering the opening game of Italia 90, where Bobby Robson's England take on old friends in Big Jack Charlton's Republic of Ireland. Welcome to the show, listener. Nick, how are you?
I'm very good. It's a bit hot, I'm not going to lie. As we sit and record this, it is a very, very warm evening.
Yeah, the opposite of the game that we're going to get into today then, weather-wise. And don't worry, listener, that's not the end of the weather chat.
Oh no, it's just begun, as in AccuWeather would be right on this.
Yeah, so you may hear the seagulls as we've had to crack the windows. You may hear the roaring sounds of the hustling and bustling Birmingham city centre. But we've got a game to cover. England versus Ireland, the opening game for the Three Lions of Italia 90.
A lot of good memories for people of Italia 90, isn't it? So I think it's the generation before us, or maybe a little bit more. They are just like, well, that's clearly the best World Cup because I was young, so that's all that matters, really.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being young, let's go to the time capsule for a year, the year before I was born.
Okay.
Time capsule for 1990. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff. I'm going with perhaps the most famous moment of 1990, which is the moment where Phil Mitchell was welcomed to, is it Albert Square?
I don't know, is it?
In EastEnders, the 20th of February 1990. The big, bald bastard came to town to set up a garage. And the rest, as I say, is history.
Set up a garage? Was he a mechanic, was he then?
Yeah,
his job? I mean, I never saw him employed whenever I watched it. He was always like...
He was in and out of work.
He was in and out of work, in and out of fights, in and out of pubs. That's kind of all I know. I didn't know that was his trade.
Yeah, and he's been in and out of the show over the years, including, I think he got shot once.
Famously, yeah. I remember watching that.
Yeah, me pretending I'm too cool to remember.
Oh, I think
so.
I think he was stabbed.
Do you know this little fact, Nick? I'm just going to tell it you. Phil Mitchell has appeared in 3,288 episodes of EastEnders. Even for a man with that longevity of 32 years in the show, that still seems quite a lot.
I was going to try and do some maths then about how many that is a year, but I don't think I'll bother because I've lost the will at that point. But no, what an achievement for Philip Mitchell.
Yeah, Steve McFadden to his friends.
He is, yeah. The inspiration by Cold War Steve, obviously, as well.
Of course. I don't really like EastEnders, but Phil permeates the culture, man.
Yeah. It's always been a part of our lives, really. Whenever we've been talking, there's always something about him that always pops up. I've never quite understood why. It was just one of those things that you talked about him every now and then when we were growing up, and I was just like, okay.
For me, his best work was when. McFadden's best work was when Philip became addicted to crack.
Okay.
Amazing. I remember a scene of him in his front room holding a bottle of whiskey and smoking a fag off his nut on crack, listening to My Generation by The Who.
My Generation.
And yeah, I mean, God, what hasn't that man done, from affairs to murders to, Ian Beale is another one with that longevity, another character with that longevity. And it was just a permanent fixture of my younger years, is watching Phil probably quarterly dunking Ian Beale's head down the toilet. Just sort of a ritual.
Near Christmas.
Yeah, there were times though when he'd come to his rescue and save him from the abyss.
Do you still watch it, or is it just kind of? I was just going to say, is it they're like a strange thing that you just kind of know it's it's out there somewhere? It's one of those so you slightly seek it, or
I will somehow, like, maybe in a pub and there's a TV with no sound on, and you'll catch a glimpse, or you'll go in families on Christmas, and I always see the same thing happening. It's either Ian Beale getting his head dunked by Phil Mitchell, or I think the character's name is Max Branning being an awful dad to his son, who I think his son died by jumping off a building.
He's a bald bloke.
He's a bald bloke.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, there's a couple in EastEnders, isn't there, actually? So I should really clarify that, including the aforementioned Phil and his brother Grant,
who were brought in apparently to bring a sense of danger and unpredictability to the show.
Well, he definitely did that.
Which they certainly did. According to an article I read earlier, Phil was brought in as the more he was supposed to be the more measured of the two.
More nuanced.
Yeah, yeah, the pathos of Phil Mitchell. But yeah, there you go. I'm not a fan of EastEnders. I'll just like to confirm that before we move on to your time capsule.
Don't try and be too cool for school again. You've already said you knew he was shot, so
I knew he was shot, but I'm not a fan. Believe me.
You know his best work at least, so you know.
Well,
you dip in.
That was the peak, and anything after that is a bit contrived. Yeah,
If that's what
bit
I mean.
of a pastiche.
Yeah, sad pastiche and those better work.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go into mine then, which actually does end up becoming a bit of a sad pastiche of the work at the start of it, really, and in its peak years. So I'm putting in The Simpsons first airs on Fox.
Another iconic Baldy.
Yeah, at
The centre of it.
Well, what's he got? 2 hairs on the top, and then there's like one. Isn't it like the Matt Groening, like a signature of his or something, or like one of the writers was like the W kind of on the side of his head is someone's like almost signature or initials.
Probably the M for Matt.
Yeah, it could be actually.
Instead
Yeah,
of a W, it might be an M.
that was it, and the ear maybe is kind of like
The G.
G. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So The Simpsons first airs on Fox, and what? I mean, you mentioned the pastiche elements, but let's talk about the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's endless, isn't it? I mean, for every kind of football podcast out there almost seems like there's a Simpsons podcast as well. I've kind of delved into like some Simpsons podcasts in the past and really enjoyed some of them as well. And then you kind of go through the great episodes, and it's just endless for people of our generation. Someone said to me the other day that they're a teacher, and they said to their students, they mentioned the Simpsons, and they were like, "What's the Simpsons?"
No,
And that just kind of went, "You are kidding. Are they trying to wind you up, basically?"
that can't be real.
Well, I thought that, but like, I guess there's no current cultural need for it to be around apart from the old episodes, which are nostalgia now, really.
Yeah, they're almost like Disney movies, aren't they? Where it's just what's the word? Where it's like a moral.
Yeah.
and it's all the family. Like there's adult jokes and jokes for the kids in there.
Yeah, like a lot of Toy Story stuff was like that, and those early like Pixar films was like there's jokes for the kids and there's jokes for the parents. But Simpsons was one of the first shows to really do that. It was one of the first shows that really you didn't have to just stick with the core characters. And there was such a huge, back catalogue of other characters you could just spend entire episodes with and never see again for the rest of the season. And then you come back and they're just like, well, they're some of the best ones, they're some of the best characters. I mean, you never say, who's your favourite Simpsons character, top 5, and someone goes, oh, it's one of the family.
Yeah,
you never really say that, do you?
And even over the years, when I felt like when I was younger, I didn't really like Marge or Lisa because they would stop the silliness.
Yeah.
But then as you're older, you realise how well written those characters are.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some of the best moments. I always remember Marge. I think she was like, Bart was upset and she was like trying to play basketball with him, and she was like, look out for the shack attack, and she just shot the ball in his face. And he was like, Mom, he's like, oh, I did say watch out. And it's just such a ridiculously funny line, the way it just happens as well.
I was going to ask what your favourite episode is, and I think that line might be from mine. Do you have a favourite episode?
The You Only Move Twice has to be up there. I think that's kind of known as being one of the best ones, isn't it? With Hank Scorpio and when they move and everything. That for jokes per minute, that is just relentless, really, for that episode.
Yeah, mine would be Marge being not proud. That one just when Bart steals the video game.
Oh, that's your favourite. Okay,
It's up there.
Yeah,
it's one of the.
It's hard, isn't it? You can't really say, oh, it's just one, because there's like, is there like something like 10 good seasons of it? I mean, that's crazy. What show could ever do that again? Really,
the writing is so good. I remember going to university and getting into like English literature class, I think it was. I don't know why this came up in English literature, but the guy was like, basically everything you need to know about telling stories is in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Every if you want humour, it's there. If you want like just really tight and concise writing or morals or a reflection of culture and society, which it did so well. It's all in there.
And kind of like A and B and C stories as well, the way things are written and how they come together at the end. I mean, I know it wasn't the first show to ever do that, but it is like a great example of one doing that as well, and always being funny for so long until it just, I don't know, you just kind of run out of steam with it. I mean, there are times that I've watched some of the newer ones. Maybe I'm thinking like 7 years ago or something. There was a new one that was on, and I was just like, that was brilliant. And then there was another one on that was also brilliant. And you're like, maybe there's a couple of good ones every season, but there's no way of knowing because no one watches it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine it's impossible to be that culturally relevant as The Simpsons was for that amount of time. There is nothing.
The only thing you could say is maybe South Park.
I don't think it ever quite reached that height in terms of being like universally loved and like.
I guess it was like in the late 90s, it was always a big teenage thing, wasn't it? Like it was so popular with that, and then the people of our kind of our age or a bit older grew up and they've got that. I mean, from whenever I dip into South Park again, that's still like they make that show in 7 days. It's always so relevant because they've just made it.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe the only other one. But in terms of longevity, even South Park's nowhere near as long running as The Simpsons.
Well, in terms of longevity, I wanted to do a bit of research while we're talking.
Okay.
South Park has 317 episodes. So that's not quite a longevity measure, but it started about 99, 2000 or something, didn't it? Simpsons, 728 episodes.
I remember when there was like a really weird number they just picked to have as like the 237th anniversary.
Is it a clip show or something?
I think it was, and it was like, well, if they're already doing that so long ago, and that's like not too far away from South Park as well, so...
Yeah, well, just as a quick bit of maths in terms of longevity, 3,288 episodes Phil Mitchell was in EastEnders, minus 728 episodes of The Simpsons. Phil has 2,560 more episodes in the canon than The Simpsons.
Wow.
And you'd argue a greater body of work.
There's an argument for that. Whether you could substantiate that argument is another thing, really, isn't it?
It is. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Two very good picks, two very bold picks.
Yeah, very much.
Why did we choose today's game then? Well, it's Italia 90, an era which we haven't covered at all, really.
No, I don't think so. I think one of the periods we've done was 82 World Cup, and then we kind of go towards the impossible jobs, don't we, from there? And we've not really touched on this England era a lot, even though it's seen as a very good England team and a very storied and a lot of drama around it as well. So I thought, well, no better place to start than the first game of Italia 90, and also we've not covered the Republic of Ireland yet, which there is a big history with. Yeah.
We've done Northern Ireland, we've done Scotland.
Yeah, we've not done Wales yet, although with the World Cup draw now being concluded and Wales being in our group, I think there's a couple of Wales games that we're going to want to do before the tournament, I think.
Yeah, 1990, a bit of an unknown era for us both, really, I think. I don't know. I think it's the fact that it was followed up with like the impossible job era, and then you just think, why bother going back? And you're seeing so many documentaries about Italia 90, and it's kind of all covered there, but maybe we can shine a new light on this particular aspect.
I think so.
Is the impossible job the closest we've come to this era? Have we done any late 80s?
No, we've not done. No, I think the latest we've done is 82. I think there's a couple of games that we've got in the pipeline, maybe in the future we want to do, maybe because we've not seen the Nico once, have we? And he's prominent today, for example, and a lot of this period too. So yeah, this is kind of our big spot in the sand just there, isn't it? This is where we draw our line. This is where we start.
Just before we move on, I'm going to beg and plead with your audience. If you don't mind, if you can see a way towards dropping us a 5-star review on any of the social platforms that any of the podcast platforms that you listen to the show on, it would really be appreciated. It helps the show go up in rankings and expose us to new listeners and all of that stuff. Also, follow us and engage on social media. So at @isvis_England for both Twitter and Instagram, and also drop us an email, any questions about the show, any favourite England memories that you might have, any games you'd like us to cover, any chat you want to bring about the current England team or the World Cup coming up. That's isthisenglandpod@gmail.com.
I think it's quite important though with those 5-star ratings. You've got to get those in so we can.
That's the key message.
That's the key message. That's what the takeaway is from this, everybody. But we want to make sure that we're knocking all those other podcasts out of there because I'm sick of seeing their faces because I don't want to listen to them because they're inferior. So let's just crack on with that.
Well, there you go. I went for the softly approach, and Nick went for the slagging off the opposition approach.
I've listened to one of those recently that did an episode of the same thing we've done. Tawdry.
Yeah.
Not good enough, if I'm honest.
Well, read between the
lines. Not long enough is my problem.
Right then, the state of football at the time. What better place to start for Italia 90 than looking at Serie A, which was essentially the centre of the world of club football.
Yeah, it was. It was where all the best talent in the world went, all the best international players. It seemed like every club side had a big star, and it was usually a star from around the world. I know AC Milan, who we'll come on to shortly, had a lot of them and different contingencies in them. But we look at where they are as we cover the game today, Diego Maradona's Napoli won only their second league title in their history, both of them during the El Diego era.
The kind of the centerpiece of the Diego, was it called Maradona or was it called Diego, the documentary that came out?
I know the one you're on about. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, especially the Napoli section. It's just looking back, such a strange move, and it wasn't necessarily that logical almost at the time, but he was just beloved there, and for obvious reason. I think they've won 1 or 2 titles since. Maybe when they had Cavani.
I think they've won cups, and I know in Italy they're very much, and a lot of other European countries they refer to cups as titles as well. But in terms of league titles, I think these are the only 2 they've ever won in their history.
That would make sense then.
But they've won like cups and coppers and all that other kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. So Napoli leading sort of the pack, but I guess to the outside, it wouldn't. They're not necessarily seen as the team to beat because there's another Italian team doing arguably bigger stuff.
Yeah,
in European champions.
Yeah, kind of overshadowing them really. So AC Milan in this era as well won back-to-back European Cups. Their second coming this season with a win over Benfica in Vienna, and Milan were the first team to retain the title since Nottingham Forest 10 years earlier. A feat no other club would do again for another 27 years.
Till Real Madrid
won it, yeah, back to back.
I liked it when nobody had won the Champions League twice in a row.
Yeah, it just felt sacred, didn't it? Of like, well, actually, it's incredibly hard to do that, and it still is. I just think Real Madrid are a freak club when it comes to that tournament, especially. It's their tournament, isn't it?
Especially when they had Ronaldo as well.
Well, yeah, they had Ronaldo and they had the Benzema and Bale as well playing really well. That incredible midfield. You could almost list the whole team, even though every year maybe 1 or 2 players would change. And then we look recently as well. That midfield is still carrying on and still winning them European Cups, and it's just
crazy,
incredible, really. But you look at AC Milan as well in this period. Again, they had Hullet and Rijkaard, Van Basten, the incredible defense as well around that time. Just an amazing team. I think they won Serie A title, I think it was around 88. Didn't win it in 89 or 90, but because they'd won the European Cup, they got back into it to then win it again. And as we go into the season after this as well, they're back in it for another year running too, which is just such a feat where only champions were able to go into that at that point before the Champions League revamp came.
And back in England, we had Liverpool, who won the title this year. They were banned from competing in European competition due to the Hazel's Stadium disaster, and just a bit of a dark period for English football. As you say, Italy's kind of what the Premiership is now at this point, and hopefully the national team can bring a bit of cheer. Let's have a look at the build-up from the national team's point of view to today's game. So England go into qualification for Italia 90 with Bobby Robson having a second attempted resignation rejected. So once again, not a happy home life. Was it Ron Greenwood who tried to resign in a previous episode but was convinced to stay?
Yeah, it was during one of the qualification campaign for 82, I think it was, and it was on a flight back from, I think it was Norway, when they lost in Norway, and he tried to resign, but the players and the staff had talked him out of it. But Robson here, he's had 2 resignations rejected, basically just before this, well, a little bit before. He'd originally handed in his notice in 1983, following failure to qualify for Euro 84, and again after England's dismal Euro 88 campaign, losing all 3 of their group games. Still to this day, England's worst performance at a major tournament.
I'm not convinced this team are going to give us a reason to cheer. Let's be frank. That's crazy. Why? I mean, no wonder it's called the impossible job by the time it gets to Taylor. People just handing in resignations left, right and centre. Just
not wanting to do the job, but having no choice but to carry on and doing it, basically.
Back when contracts meant something, eh?
Well, yeah. I mean, you even had... you had Don Revie, obviously, in that period. A little bit before Greenwood, too, when he tried to resign, they'd stopped him, and he did something like he'd done an interview with the Daily Mail, and it was something like the head of the Daily Mail handed in his resignation for him. I've read since, and it's just like, that is madness. And then you get to Robson of this era, and he's really not liked. We think of Bobby Robson now as this universally loved person because he was always very honest and seen as a really nice bloke and all that kind of stuff. But actually, you look at this now and you just think people were not happy with him at all. The newspapers hated him.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? I mean, by the end of his football career and now in 2022, if you were to ask the average punter, Thoughts on Robson? They would say he's like a lovely old granddad of English football.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
You know, but let's talk about the press then. Obviously, it wouldn't be long until the press were completely destroying Graham Taylor's life, but they were giving it a good go with Robson. So he had actually got England to a World Cup quarter-final in 1986, sort of in between failing to qualify for 84 and the dismal Euro 88.
Just Euro. I think the Euros weren't as much of a big thing back then. I think there was a much smaller tournament, so I didn't even think it was shown in England until 92.
No?
Like live. I think you maybe got highlights at the end of a day maybe, but yeah, if it's not even shown over here, then you think they're not really that serious about it.
Well, even having the sort of the man to blame there in Diego Maradona for the hand of God that knocked England out of the World Cup in '86, you know, that usually buys you a bit of time and support as a manager because the fans' ire is placed elsewhere. But there were kind of calls for him to leave the job from the press not long after that.
Yeah. There was the Mirror especially had been really awful about him. They'd printed the headline, "In the name of God, go." And
in the name of God, go.
Just imagine that on the front page today. Just just crazy, really. And then and afterwards, after 88 Euros, England drew in Saudi Arabia, and they'd updated and reprinted their headline with "In the name of Allah, go." I mean, just utterly witless, isn't it?
Yeah, that's bad.
It's bad on a lot of levels.
It's bad on a lot of levels.
And it's just like, what are you even achieving? I mean, the Sun were big for pushing Brian Clough to get the job, even at this point when he's kind of at the end of his tether.
Jesus Christ.
So Clough's still around. He's still bothering other England managers not getting the job. But I think he'd written for the Sun. So they'd obviously wanted him to come in as well. And inside the Mirror that day when they'd printed the updated headline, there was the top 10 Bernard Manning jokes about Bobby Robson. I mean,
that's the content we all need.
I mean, what on earth is that? This is really what you're paying or doing with your life?
The subheading of that "Go in the name of Allah Go" headline was "Robbo should be a train driver." What does that mean?
I mean, is that a joke? Is that number 7 in Bernard Manning's list?
I'm presuming we've missed some context around it, but should be a train driver. Do you think train drivers were on strike or something at the time, and they were the people that were kind of being beaten down by the press?
Yeah, maybe you're so useless you should be a train driver or something like that.
Yeah.
He's clearly not a bad manager, is he? I think he can keep his profession instead of learning a new one. I mean, yeah, I've got no idea what that's about. Maybe
or just take a professional football management job that's not England.
Could do.
Yeah,
could easily could do,
and may go on to later in his career.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, he has, by hook or by crook, managed to get England to Italia 90. How did we get there? Was it a bit of a nervy one, a bit of a tight one? I mean, it looks on paper fine.
Yeah, from what I can research, it was I wouldn't say it was easy, but England were quite solid. So they'd gone through the qualifying campaign without conceding a goal in 6 matches, which really, really good going. Defensive stability built on Peter Shilton in goal, Gary Stevens and Stuart Pearce at fullback, and Des Walker and Terry Butcher at centre halves. And they'd finished second in World Cup qualifying, only to Sweden, who England seemed to play every 2 weeks in this era anyway. So yeah, they'd gone through without really. Well, if you don't concede a goal, you've done all right, I think, there, haven't you?
Solid defence, and they were spreading the goals around a little. John Barnes had scored 2 goals during qualifying, as did Lineker and Beardsley. You had Gascoigne, Brian Robson, Chris Waddle scoring 1 each. I mean, it's not an incredible. I think the record in the end was scored 10, conceded none. And I think they finished second, did you say, in the group?
Yeah, second. Second was good enough for automatic qualification back then as well. I mean, yeah, I think offensively, that's quite dull from England. I mean, not conceding a goal, brilliant, but maybe it's that overcautiousness where he's thinking, this is the way I want to play, actually, and it's quite dull. Maybe it's seen then as, we want to put the handbrake off and we want to do all this kind of stuff with England with all these great players we've got.
Is that a sign of the times? Is that repeating themselves as when we're recording this podcast?
Still won nothing.
Still won nothing.
Still won nothing, but that's still what we try and tell ourselves.
Well, that was all that Robson could do is win something. Apparently, there was a bit of an ultimatum. Yeah.
So the FA had always stuck by Robson, mostly due to the chairman, Bert Millerchip, I think his name was. He just didn't get on with Brian Clough, basically.
No.
Yeah, I know, imagine that.
Yeah.
And so they stuck by him for so long, but he was basically told, you've either got to win the World Cup or you go. Which is, again, what...
I'll just say, can I go then? Because I'm not going to win the World Cup, am I?
Well, the thing is, though, when he qualified, he'd been told that his contract wouldn't be extended after the World Cup unless they won it. So he said that, all right, fine. So he went to go and get a deal somewhere else, went and he agreed to become the manager of PSV. As we said, go and get a job somewhere else in football management. PSV were quite a big club around this point. I think they'd won the European Cup not too far
And of
previously.
course, they've got a huge railway empire as well, so he could be a train driver
There you go.
as well as a football manager.
Maybe there was other rumours about doing that. You never know. But yeah, and when it was announced he was leaving after the World Cup, the press still weren't happy that he was going, and they said that he was being unpatriotic for lining up a job abroad.
So it's almost like your boss comes in and goes to you. I don't know, say if your target is you work in sales or something and your target's financial and your target has usually been, I need you to bring in £30,000 of sales a year or something like that. And then your boss going, if you don't bring me £3 million of sales in the next month, you're gone. And then you go, well, okay. And then just sort yourself a job on the side, hand in your notice. And then your boss is like, what the hell, man?
What you doing?
Yeah, what the hell are you doing?
I think that's absolutely fair, isn't it? Just go and find somewhere else that's going to appreciate you, really.
And he'd already tried it twice.
You know I don't want to be here.
I've had it in my notice twice. Why are you expecting this to get any better?
I'm not going to stay. I'm not signing another contract. You've already rejected it twice.
That's a point, actually. So he's tried to hand in his notice and they've gone, yeah, no.
Would you like a new contract?
I'll tell you, you've got to earn this new contract if you want it so bad,
No.
Robson. I don't want it.
I don't want this contract. I've been telling you for weeks.
For years.
Have you not read The Mirror?
Back on the playing side of things, the previously mentioned Paul Gascoigne. He had made himself a key player in the England squad leading into the tournament. He made his debut for the Three Lions in 1988. I think he made 2 appearances that year and made 4 appearances in the following year, 1989. And, 6 appearances over 2 years leading into a World Cup year. He was not guaranteed a place. It was very, very last minute that he secured his place in the squad. According to writer Pete Davis, who wrote a book called All Played Out, a fly-on-the-wall account of Italia 90, Robson's feelings on Gascoigne sort of in the months prior to announcing his squad had been, I love him, but I'm not sure if I can trust him. And in late 1989, he had said he doesn't know about being secure with the ball in dangerous positions. He still does irresponsible things. He's still a kid playing backstreet football, which we've heard that about players like Wayne Rooney and what have you over the years.
Yeah, any kind of young player is always labelled with that, oh, well, they're too young. It's like, well, yeah, because they're a young player, aren't they? I mean, I quite like that. I love him, but I don't know if I can trust him.
It's sexy, isn't
I
it?
know, yeah, it's just like, it's like such a bad boy. Oh, what's he going to do to me? I just don't know. Don't want my heart broken again.
I know, do I?
Yeah, I know. By a fellow Geordie as well.
However, on April the 25th, 1990, England played Czechoslovakia, winning 4-2, and Gascoigne put in one of those performances for the ages. He set up 3 goals and scored the 4th himself, and that just basically meant Robson had no choice but to take him. I mean, that's the kind of generational, I think, is the word, sort of performance, when a young player comes good for England. I mean, you think of some of Rooney's ones. Maybe one that was filled with false promise would be Theo Walcott against Croatia years later.
Yeah. I mean, that'd definitely be up there, wouldn't it? And one of like you've announced yourself, kind of. I mean, I read a little bit around the Gascoigne kind of that game because he played for England before, like you say, but this is where he started to really kick on and guarantee himself that place in the World Cup squad. And I think it's a game I'd really like to watch one day. I've listened to some stuff around it, and it just sounds so interesting. I mean, he just absolutely dominates the team. Czechoslovakia weren't a bad team at all around the time. I think they went to the World Cup and they did all right as well.
I think Steve Ball got 2 goals in that game.
Oh, we're definitely watching that then, aren't we?
Wolves watch.
Yeah.
Now for the most crucial part of the build-up, England. I called you England then. Nick, over to
England.
you.
Yeah, it is the official World Cup song. And after some previously awful songs, England somehow landed New Order to pen this edition.
It's a new era.
I mean, amazing that they managed to get New Order to do this. I mean, one of the biggest bands in the world at the time as well. And what came next was World in Motion, one of the great sporting songs. I don't think you're a big fan of New Order, are you? You've never really delved into them.
I would say I'm a fan. Like, I've got nothing against them and I really like them, but I would talk probably on a greatest hits level.
Yeah.
Like, I could listen to the greatest hits all day and I never really have stuck to one of their actual full-length albums. But as far as the greatest hits go, they're as good as any other greatest hits. There's so many good ones where you listen to them. Like, I always think of the Kinks and David Bowie's, where you listen to them and you go, well, that selection of songs is probably the best selection you could ever pick you know,
Yeah.
and listen to as a greatest hits album. Sometimes bands get the selection a bit off.
Yeah.
I think New Order's one, I forget what it's called now, but that one's up there as well. And I think World in Motion is quite early on in that.
Yeah, I mean, World in Motion, a brilliant song, and we love Three Lions and a couple of other ones. But as a song itself, I could listen to that all the time, basically, outside of the context of football. Really,
it's the better one because it doesn't have that novelty kind of jovial, and the music's just great. It's not like a pastiche of anything.
I think it had been a New Order song they'd had knocking around for ages, and they just didn't really know what to do with. And the FA came to them and they were like, "Okay, well, we might as well use this, and can we get a couple of football references in?" But you say about the jovial nature of it. Obviously, it's really well known because of the John Barnes rap in it as well. Apparently, the day it was recorded, there were numerous England players who gave it a go, the rap, including Gazza and Peter Beardsley. I mean, how much would you just love to hear those outtakes?
Oh my God, Peter Beardsley doing that.
I mean, either of them trying to do it.
Especially Beardsley.
Well, today's your lucky day.
That actually,
I've actually got it.
oh
You've got to hold and give, but do it at the right time.
He's
You
not
can
bad.
be slow
His
or
timing's
fast,
absolutely
but
on.
You must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you. Defend and attack. There's only one way to beat them. Get round the back. Catch me if you can, because I'm England man. And what you're looking at is the master plan. We ain't no fool again. This ain't a football song. Three lions on my chest. I know we can.
Look at Beardsley.
To hold and give, but do it at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line.
No, Gazza's was fine.
He misses a couple of beats.
Catch me if you can, cause I'm the England man. And what you're looking at is the master plan. We ain't no hooligan, this ain't a football song. Three lions on my chest, I know we can.
That was
Seminal.
that was seminal. I thought Gazza was fine. He
He stumbles over it a bit as well.
Yeah, but he, I would have probably said to him, let's have a couple more takes.
Yeah.
But you get in there. Beardsley just put a stop to that.
Yeah.
It's like if you see like a kid's school show and one kid gets up and he's like pissed himself or something. You're like, oh no, Timmy, come on, let's get you off the stage.
No, you could just come with me. Mommy's waiting outside.
I'm doing a rap. Yes, you are, but not in front of these people.
All right, of course you are. Now, come on. Come on, we'll get you some chocolate. Don't worry.
Oh, I'm going to have to listen to the John Barnes version when this is done.
There is a version on that as well that I found. There was a John Barnes version where he's clearly done it for the first time as well. So you go, oh, is this John Barnes? I think it's John Barnes. It's like he's clearly not got the timing right on all the unrehearsed it. It's like someone's gone, right, do it now.
It's still kind of early rap flow as well. It's like
it's Will Smith kind of rap.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just disgusting.
But
It's what you get like these days with like trying to be cool. And there's like a granny doing a rap on a show, and it's just like, I'm here saying that. Oh, it's horrible.
my name is something, and I am something. I don't
Here
know.
to say,
Yeah. Oh,
Right,
Oh, hang on. Look, one more. Who would do it today?
who would you trust to do it, and who would you want to hear the outtakes of?
Jack Grealish outtakes
Oh my god, yeah, Jack Grealish. I reckon
and Harry Kane outtakes as well.
Harry Kane outtakes. Yeah, I think Grealish would be a fun one. Who'd be good at it though?
Kyle Walker.
You know who I reckon would be surprisingly good?
Jordan Pickford.
Yep. I think something about Jordan Pickford, because you've seen him like out on nights out and stuff like that, and like get the rave on and all that. I reckon he'd be well into it.
I think Walker would just be like, it's a job. I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities, and I think he's good at everything.
Yeah.
Jordan Pickford would be great.
I think Pickford would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I think the most embarrassing, because I think Grealish's would be funny. Like that wouldn't be like Beardsley levels of embarrassment.
I think Kane might be Beardsley levels.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't want to pick on him, but
Yeah, you maybe not. I reckon Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw as well. I was just going to say that'd be bad.
I think we're just trying to go through that starting 11 because we just can't think of anybody else. But yeah, I think Luke Shaw would maybe take it too seriously and be awful at it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, we'll move on today to the Republic of Ireland.
Welcome to the show, the Republic of Ireland, and welcome back to the show, the Republic of Ireland manager, Big Jack Charlton.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Well, this is a strange appointment to the casual listener.
Yeah, yeah.
A World Cup winner.
World Cup winner
With England.
With England, storied player for England, and along with his brother Bobby, who he's kind of always intertwined with as well. He actually applied for the vacant England job at one point and didn't even receive a response.
That's bad, isn't it? That's typical England FA. I think they do it better now because everything's so PR'd, but you hear about things like how Bobby Moore used to flipping have to clean windows or stuff.
I was going to say, yeah.
You know, and to not even reply to him. You know, you need a whole team of staff to look after legacy players and legends like that.
Yeah.
And keep them as ambassadors. You can't just discard them as soon as they don't play for you anymore.
I know. I just think it's disgusting the way he used to treat people. And then someone like Jack as well, who was clearly such a character. When you there was clips you see of him on like TV shows when he was just still playing or just out of it, and he just seems so like terrifying yet approachable at times. I mean, with some of the research I did, I rewatched the Jack Charlton documentary, and it just melts my heart at times. It makes me laugh. It's just fantastic. And Charlton said after he hadn't received a reply that he'd never apply for another job again. He'd wait for someone to come to him.
Right. And
I mean,
is that what happened then?
So that's what happened, yeah. Chairman of the FAI, Des Casey, called him and asked him if he'd be interested. And after 3 different phone calls, Jack accepted, saying that he couldn't see how he wouldn't qualify for a tournament with those players.
Do you think that was Jack just like not understanding how a phone works? I can't get it to answer. Hello, are you there?
Just smashing it.
I did read, and I didn't put it in the notes. I was short of time. A bit of research about the appointment. And it wasn't quite along those lines. I was reading that there was a bit of a ballot system.
Yeah.
And that the first time it went through like 3 stages or 4 stages of ballot system, and like first time he was basically second from bottom.
Yeah.
And then slowly it just ended up with him as manager, and I don't know if others had dropped off. And there was talk of at the last minute there was talk of I think a legendary Liverpool manager, and I'm trying to think who.
Oh, was it Paisley?
Yeah.
I think it was his health problems that stopped that, didn't it? And I think because then they'd done the ballot system and they'd gone through it all, they kind of accidentally decided on Charlton.
Yeah.
Like they'd gone through it. It's like, oh, where do you want, like, you know, what film do you want to see tonight? Everybody, like, you know, vote or something, and we'll get our decision. And you get like 3 points for your favourite one, second and first, and then you all end up going to a film no one wants to see.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind of worked that, and that's where the phone call came to then try and appoint him after 3 calls.
The donkey is a horse designed by committee theory.
Very much so.
But I mean, he's a confident horse, confident donkey.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying there's no chance he's not going to qualify with those players. We have a little look at just one thing on the players actually. His, in hindsight, his career with Ireland as manager seen as a fair success.
Very successful. Probably the greatest manager ever, I'd say.
Yeah. Partially, his success has been attributed to something that would later become known as the granny rule. Mm-hmm. So looking back at heritage, sort of 2 generations past, and basically trying to convince those players, you may not have a chance with England, but the rules mean that you could play for Ireland because of your family history. Mm-hmm. I mean, examples of this, Andy Townsend, Tony Cascarino, Mick McCarthy. Not really seen as the done thing at the time, but I think Jack wanted to think outside the box and give it, try and almost, stack the cards in his favour.
Yeah, use anything you can really to improve your team, which I think is clearly absolutely fine. And as well, I mean, I don't think he was the first manager or Ireland manager to ever do it. I think Owen Hand had done it a couple of times as well, his predecessor, but I think it was more popularised and almost used as an excuse to beat Ireland with the fact that they'd taken these players, or taken is the wrong word, but they'd almost nationalised these players to be part of their team, and because, like you say, maybe they weren't going to play for England or some of the other countries that they were able to, but I think it's absolutely fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all if you can do that.
Yeah.
You've clearly got the history, and I think he'd always said, when you come and play for me, you are Irish, and actually, because it's an immigrant nation, then actually, if it weren't for the people who left and had to leave because of work and jobs and all that kind of stuff, then they would be Irish, so they would be playing here anyway, which I think is a nice way of looking at it.
I guess in the modern day, it's almost seen as a source of real pride.
Yeah.
I was on Instagram earlier and I follow Ravel Morrison, and he's very proud to support to play for Jamaica.
Yeah, okay.
Looking back, it's a great thing to do, to go, well, my family history has been dictated or changed by sort of immigration and the need to move around in the world in some occasions, but that's not to say I shouldn't stay true to my roots in one sense and explore that culture and become part of it in my own way.
Oh,
so
totally.
Today it's a completely different thing, but at the time Jack was picking them up and making them Irish, as you say.
Yeah,
he was making big calls all over the shop, though, wasn't he? Really, he really wanted to make this kind of a separate team to Ireland before and anything that could come later.
And his team in his mould as well. I mean, he'd done things like drop David O'Leary, who was one of their better players, because in his own words, he doesn't like centre backs who can play. I like those who can stop others playing.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, well, obviously we'll come on to the style in shortly, but yeah, he did end up calling O'Leary as an injury replacement on one occasion, but O'Leary refused because he'd already got a holiday booked. I mean, you do not do that to Charlton, do you? He will no be happy.
No. Oh man, imagine that. Imagine the silence after he'd said it.
After he'd called him 3 times.
No, like after he goes, I'd love to, but I've got a holiday booked. Are you there, Gaffer? You just hear him. And then he just explodes, you know.
Yeah, I love it.
But for all of his sort of, as you mentioned, he's kind of a tough guy, exterior, and quite an intimidating figure. He has the other side to him, and his approach was the anti-Capello, really.
Yeah.
He wanted a bit of crack.
Yeah, he wanted just a great atmosphere around the camp, didn't he? He let the players go to racing days, go for beers, just to get them, the team doing things together and actually get closer with each other. He also involved everybody from star players to kit men. They were all equals. There's an interview in the Charlton documentary, I think, with the kit man, and he was kind of like, someone was like, oh, you're just a kit man or whatever, but he was like, I was never made to feel like that at all under him.
Has that approach ever not worked?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Do you know
Like
what I
he's
mean?
got bad atmosphere and
Not necessarily the beers and stuff, but just a bit more relaxed and treating everyone as equals and like you're all in it together. You look at like Wales now as well.
yeah, it's a really good example, isn't it? Over the last 4 years, they've really got a great atmosphere around, or even longer, really, in the Kurt Coleman era and all that too.
Yeah, I guess it must just be a bit more sort of draining and exhausting having to think about all of these different people. Some managers would probably prefer just to focus on the squad or even just a starting 11 to a degree.
Which is kind of the Capello, you're dead to me if you make a mistake, that kind of person, isn't it? But
yeah.
I think it's great, but it clearly worked because, straight away results picked up. They beat Brazil in a friendly at home and qualified for Euro 88, which was Ireland's first ever major tournament. I mean, what an achievement.
Amazing. So straight in. England must be thinking, can we call him back?
Yeah, exactly. We're sick of this Bobby Robson.
Do you think he was just properly driven by the lack of response from England and almost taking Ireland and thinking, well, I want to get them up to England's level because they will hate that?
I think so, yeah. I think he was always still very proud to be English and everything like that, but it was still the point of...
More the FA than England then.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think it was the FA that he really had an issue with because they'd clearly been balls up for so many years and was so disrespectful to him too.
So they'd qualified for Euro 88, their first ever major tournament, and to get to Italia 90, which would, if they were to qualify, no spoilers, be their second ever major tournament, they had to get through a qualification group of Spain, Hungary, Malta and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I know.
Tricky.
Yeah, very tricky. I mean, I think in World Cup 94 qualifying, they were drawn with Northern Ireland again. I mean,
those games.
I mean, at this time, that just seems an absolute nightmare, doesn't it?
Just take that ball out of that bag.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But calling everything off, it's just it's not worth the hassle, is it? But qualification went down to the final 2 games with the Republic beating their northern counterparts 3-0 at home and then winning 2-0 in Malta on the final day. And they only finished 1 point behind Spain in their qualifying group, which is amazing. And same with England, top 2 go through automatically.
Amazing. It does remind me of Wales as we're reading through this, and Scotland had it for a little while. I think they fell short a couple of times of qualifying for the tournaments, but it is great when you see the resurgence of the home nations, and Republic of Ireland. Aside from that, because none of the rest aside from England in that group have ever consistently done well in terms of qualifying.
Yeah.
But when they rise back up after a fall, it's great, and it's always down to that sort of unity. And you get players like you think of like Robert Earnshaw for Wales when he was sort of starting this long sort of train of success on that. I mean, they're probably the best example of continued success now, having just qualified for 2022 World Cup.
These days, definitely. And in, 2 tournaments in a row for Wales as well now?
Yeah.
So with the Euros too and the Euro 2016 as well, they qualified for too. So
yeah. Before we move on into the game, a little bit about, we talked about the press for Bobby Robson. How did the Irish press respond to Sir Jack?
So there'd been some criticism around his appointment, saying that he was English and all this other kind of stuff. Charlton also had an ongoing rivalry with Eamon Dunphy, a controversial figure in Irish journalism. In his first press conference after being appointed, Charlton challenged him to a fight, saying, "I know you, you're trouble, let's take this outside," and then stormed out of his own press conference.
Well, it was stormed out as in, come and meet me, I'm going outside.
I think he was just sick of the questions, and that was the excuse of, right, I know you, you're trouble, I'm going. And yeah, and Charlton went so far as to never be interviewed by Dunphy due to his comments and Dunphy's approach to the Irish team.
Which would have been like, what, a negative sort of...
Yeah, I think he's one of those people in football, from what I've read about him and what I've heard, he's quite a bit of a rent-a-gob.
Yeah.
So, and he'll pop up again throughout some of the coverage too, but he's always one of those contrarians of, actually, we're not doing very well because of this and that gets him more like time and whatever.
They don't really exist that much now, do they? I guess the press room's a bit different.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful, but like...
It's more like the one, it's instead of like a press person or a couple of them, it's just social media aren't happy, aren't they? You just look at those and go, well, social media, Twitter's not happy. I was like, fuck Twitter.
And then that kind of just gives the journalist a question to ask anyway, and frame it as though it's not his own.
Yeah.
You know, well, Twitter's not me.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Take it up with Twitter, mate, not me. You know, they're the one. It's hashtag so and so out and all this other crap.
Oh, right. We have a game to cover.
We do,
Nick, and it's the opening game of England's Italia 90 tournament. England versus Ireland, World Cup Italia 90 at the Stadio Sant'Elia in Cagliari, Monday, the 11th of June, 1990.
A warm welcome to Cagliari on the island of Sardinia, and the rising tension in the Sant'Elia Stadium, as hot as the temperature has been during the day. Not so now, though the weather is decidedly cooler. The temperature has certainly dropped, and it's a very blustery evening. England against the Republic of Ireland, the match. They're billing a British-style showdown on Italian soil. England thirsting, of course, to avenge their defeat by the Republic in the European Championships of 1988. And the Irish defending an unbeaten record that stretches back now to November of that same year.
Yep, here we are. This was England's successive tournament opener against the Republic of Ireland after the Republic of Ireland's 1-0 win in Euro 88 after Ray Houghton's early goal. Their first game at a major tournament, and they beat England 1-0. I mean...
So when I was talking about being driven by anti-FA Jack Charlton, he got it straight away.
Straight away. I mean, first game. I mean, there's reports of kind of like a lot of the press around Ireland not being happy that England was the first game that they'd ever play at a major tournament, because it was like, well, this isn't going to end well, is it? But they won, and it was seen as one of the great days of Irish football, really.
I bet. So who else is in this group?
So amazingly, England and Republic of Ireland were both joined by fellow Euro 88 Group 2 alumni in the Netherlands. So they were in the same group in Euro 88 as well, and they're drawn together here too. Netherlands ended up winning Euro 88, and this group was completed by Egypt, who were expected to be the whipping boys.
Okay. We mentioned earlier that it's a bit of a dark time for football in England, and especially in terms of fans and fan perception. Italia 90, kind of almost, I want to say almost the peak. Peak of that. There was still bad stuff in the late 90s, but it was treated very seriously by sort of the Italian, I don't want to say government or police, or I guess a mixture of everything, you know. And England fans were kind of cast aside and almost quarantined. Yeah,
England and their fans have been based on the island of Sardinia, even before they even qualified for the tournament. So it was like, well, if England qualified, that's where they're going to be. Yeah. I mean, that's preemptive straight away. And it was seen as being so kind of aggressive that the fans and the people who were going over there, like, well, I'm not causing any problems. And I know it's only a small proportion of people who actually do cause problems, but hooliganism was rife in like the late 80s, early 90s, but it was just in there so they couldn't cause any trouble. And all alcohol was banned for tonight's game as well, so that should calm things down.
Yeah.
That is definitely, well, I will find booze and I will get us so drunk before the game that it doesn't even matter.
I guess nowadays it's easy to look at it like that and see that people will just go for it like even more if you tell them they can't. But
yeah,
I guess they just went with what they thought was most sensible, even if it's quite harsh in retrospect.
think so, yeah. What I've kind of read around this period for England is that actually 88 was really bad in terms of hooliganism, and then 90 actually wasn't as bad in terms, there were problems obviously with hooligans and whatever, but it was coming from a lot of places. You'd had West German fans and Netherlands fans who had big kind of contingencies as well, who were causing problems, but it was only England and the Republic actually, because of these games, who were stationed out on Sardinia.
Well, the night has arrived, Monday, the 11th of June. Not the best weather in Italy at this time, considering there'd been an electrical storm over the pitch.
Yeah.
Like directly. I mean, what a foreboding, what's the word? Prophetic fallacy?
Yeah.
Where the weather kind of, I think we've talked about that before. Anyway, the electrical storm over the pitch, TV monitors and equipment shorting out during the game. And it kind of paints a dark picture of Italia 90 in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I think of Italia 90 games, it always feels like they're taking place at like 3 minutes past 2 in the morning. It's just pitch black, isn't it? It's like when you wake up before your alarm goes off and you look at your phone and you go, oh, thank God, I've got X amount of hours to go back to sleep. It feels like that's when these games are happening.
Oh God, thank God I've got X amount of hours to go back to sleep, and I've got to watch England in the middle of the night.
And I've got to watch this game.
Yeah. And the last sort of bit of preamble and pre-hype before we get to the lineups. Quite a nice tone setter. So Jack Charlton had previously said Irish football had feared England in terms of football, but that fear had long gone by the time the teams met here. And I guess the fans believed it as well. Irish people were selling their homes to get to Italy to watch their team in their first World Cup. Can you imagine those conversations?
What, with the wife? Or?
With the wife. You're what?
Who are these people in the house? Oh, they own it now. What?
Yeah. And what am I going to do while you go to Italy?
Well, you can look for a new house.
Yeah. Oh my God. But we've spent all the money.
Because you're going to,
Yeah.
we can move to Italy. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh God. And that's a lot of positive belief, isn't it?
I know. Yeah. Well, it was kind of the days of, you think of the late 80s and the 90s and the early 90s, sorry. And it's just not a lot is kind of great in the country either at that point. There's a lot of unrest and upheaval, and people are just looking for any bit of joy they can get at that point. And going to the World Cup to watch Ireland for the first time, I mean, what more of an excuse could you be like? Let's just get away from life's distractions.
Yeah. Selling your house is
that's a big shout. Yeah, I mean, that is silly, isn't it? But
maybe too much. Anyway, their lineups: England in goal, Peter Shilton. In defence, we have Gary Stevens, Des Walker, Terry Butcher, and Stuart Pearce. In midfield, we have Chris Waddle, Brian Robson, captain, Paul Gascoigne, and John Barnes. Up front, Gary Lineker and Peter Beardsley. On the bench, we have Chris Woods, David Seaman, Neil Webb, Paul Parker, Mark Wright, Tony Dorigo, Steve McMahon, David Platt, Steve Hodge, Trevor Stephen, and Steve Bull. So many Steves, and that also just read like a Talk Sport lineup, didn't it? Like, I'm pretty sure every single one of them had like a stint on Talk Sport.
I think we've even got one in the Ireland lineup, I think, as well, when I get to that in a minute too.
We've got Gary Stevens, Steve McMahon, Steve Hodge, Trevor Stephen, and Steve Bull.
Wasn't there, because Gary Stevens, and I think there's another Gary Stephen, I think in general, when in England around this period, I think in World Cup 86, they're both on the pitch at the same time. And it's like, what on earth do you even say? I think they said like Gary Stephen of Tottenham compared to the Everton one, maybe, into how to differentiate them.
So I'm presuming that England's back four, I mean, they didn't concede a goal in qualifying. I presume it's the same back four and nobody's come in to change that or dropped out.
No, it's kind of seen as one of the highlights of qualifying, really. So they just thought, let's not mess it up. Let's just keep it the same. And, a really solid England team, really. I mean, Lineker and Barnes have been top scorers in the league that season as well.
Wow.
And,
Brian Robson, and who we'd seen, I mean, it was 8 years prior to this, but deliver an all-time great England performance. Peter Beardsley as well. Yeah, very, very good team. Peter Shilton.
Yeah. old Schiltz.
109 international caps this game takes him to, and it takes over from a record set by Pat Jennings. Is that for like most international appearances or something?
Yeah, most international appearances ever. I mean, it feels like we've seen 87 of those England games for Shilton, doesn't it?
I know that in theory, well, not even in theory, in practice, he's had an absolute ton of games, so
Yeah.
we're going to see a lot of him. But still, it never fails to amaze me how often he pops up.
Again, 73 to around 1990. I mean, that is such a long England career. Like, you can't even really get your head around it, can you?
Buffon-esque.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you want to give us the Republic lineup or any more to say on England?
No, I think that's it for England for now. The Republic of Ireland's lineup was Pat Bonner and then Chris Morris, Mick McCarthy, captain, Big Mick, Kevin Moran and Steve Staunton, and then Andy Townsend, Paul McGrath, Ray Houghton, Tony Cascarino, John Aldridge and Kevin Sheedy, and a bench of Gary Payton, Ronnie Whelan, David O'Leary, Chris Houghton, Bernie Slavin, John Sheridan, Niall Quinn, Frank Stapleton, David Kelly, John Byrne and Alan McLaughlin.
Okay, I reckon we have about 40 talk sports people across the... I mean, every name just sounds like... It's Tony Cascarino who's the
Cascarino's the one I'm thinking of.
big one.
Yeah.
I'm sure McCarthy's been on there. Chris Houghton must have been on there. David O'Leary. Anyway, let's leave that to one side. What to say on that? I mean, there are some big names in there, really. Maybe it's just for stuff they've done later, though. Not necessarily football career names.
Maybe. I mean, you look at Paul McGrath in there at 36. He's kind of at the peak of his powers. He's left Man United because Ferguson's kicked him out due to his drinking, but he's at Villa and not long till he goes on to be like PFA Player of the Season at Villa. I mean, he's wearing the number 7 in this game and he's a centre midfielder. I've only ever known of him playing in defence, so I'm a bit like, this is strange. This doesn't seem to fit.
Jack Charlton has looked at a central defender and gone, you can go more forward, son.
Yeah, you just want to pump it long. Brilliant. None of this fancy shit. Just do it like that.
Pulls him aside. Let me tell you about my big day out when I played as a striker. That could be you.
You can get forward if you want. And Frank Stapleton, former Man United and Arsenal player, he's on the bench. I thought he was about 40 by now.
You may have been.
I know, but I had a look. I think he's only like in his early 30s. I was just like, is this real?
Confusing.
So strange. I thought he was long gone by now.
With Paul McGrath as well, you've got, you mentioned, being sort of taken out of the United squad and sold due to his drinking. No beers available here, mate.
No, he's done there.
We expect his absolute peak performance.
Very much so.
And Big Mick McCarthy as captain.
Yeah, mix in there as well. The strongest Irish accent you'll ever hear in your life is Mick, but he's really obviously beloved by the people of Ireland as well, and stepped in to be their captain around this time.
We're getting closer. It's time to take a look at the kits. England. How to describe this one then? Really shiny.
So shiny.
Why is it so shiny?
I don't know. It's just I think I've had this England kit. I went to Benicassim a couple of years ago and had this and had that shirt with 19 on the back as well. And it was just like, even then you're walking in the sun, it was like, oh, that's so bright.
Yeah, it's a really nice shirt. The blue collar, the kind of sort of Umbro armband attached to it almost as well.
Yeah, really nice little button at the top as well. I like it.
Truly iconic, I would guess, as the saying goes, especially come the end of the tournament and the players who wear it and make it famous. Real retro classic. Ireland. I really like Ireland. It reminds me of sort of I was going to say I guess like it reminds me of retro tops that are put out now.
Yeah,
like new Man United collection that they've put out, and it's just like 80s brought up to the modern day. And as we've said before, early 90s is still the 80s.
Oh, this is still the 80s, this game, isn't it? I mean, the mullet on Chris Waddle, it is disgusting.
It makes me feel sick.
It is awful. But yeah, I like the Ireland kit. It's quite simple, but it's good. It's kind of got that Umbro. I know it's an Adidas neck on it as well with the lines, which I like that too.
The national anthems then. Do England knock it out of the park?
No. There's pretty much no mic sound on any of the anthems. And Brian Robson standing there like a statue. Just imagine just tearing his shoulder in silence as he's singing that anthem out.
Yeah, not a great one. A bit of a strange move from Ireland. They turned their back to the camera for the anthem. I'm not sure why. One theory I would work from is maybe their fans were like segregated over the other side and they wanted to face their fans.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I could not even tell you why they do that, but the camera soon scoots round and it gets a couple of the Irish players. It's basically, when it runs down the lineup, it is just like full speed trying to just get as many players in as it can. But
we're also introduced to a brand new era now. We've seen egg timers in the past,
replays
in first introduced.
The Big R.
We're into graphics now.
Oh, mate.
Real graphics, I'm talking.
Somebody's been introduced to a graphics machine, haven't they?
Yeah, and somebody nearly cocks it up when the screen just goes completely blank except for a picture of Peter Shilton's face for like 5 seconds. Just there's nothing. It's like he's hijacked it. He's going to go, everybody, I've got my fingers on the big red button unless you pay me $1 billion. Austin Powers vibes. He doesn't. He just goes away.
It's so weird, isn't it? It's like someone's just snuck like a frame into like a film. Like, if you pause it on this second, you'll actually see like a dirty picture or something, and it's just Peter Shilton's big dirty face in there as well.
Yeah. And we get the famous World Cup Italia 90 graphic of the World Cup stood atop a tombstone that's the size of a football stadium.
I mean,
it's towering above the rendered stadium as well.
It looks awful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely like right. He knows graphics. Get him to do it. I think the coverage we've watched is Eurosport, so nothing is branded correctly at all.
The whole pre-game build-up makes me feel a little bit queasy. I mean, the graphics are all over the place. It's unsettling. You've got slides popping in. Chris Waddle's horrible mullet. Sorry, just a lot of bad visual decisions being made.
There's a lot of bad audio ones as well, because Laurie McMenemy's on commentary here as well. And within the first 3 minutes, he's managed to mention a February in Grimsby. I mean, is that anything more? I know grim is the word to say, but do you know how he's mentioned this? It's like the middle of summer. It's an electric storm.
It's the weather. It's the weather, though. I mean, we'll get into the weather, but he's compared the atmosphere and the weather to a grim February in Grimsby.
Awful.
And let's kick off then. First 3 minutes, we see 3 England back passes.
Straight to Shilton. I wonder why they outlawed this rule finally after this tournament. Or not after this tournament, not too far after it, but it's not a good sign, is it? And what we get is a enormous throw from Mick McCarthy, like really early on as well.
Yeah, a really long throw. It seems like it's going to be a bit of a dark arts game. You've got the ominous clouds, you've got the graphics of a tombstone that's bigger than a stadium, and then you're going into the sort of dirty tactics of back passes and long throws, which not necessarily a dirty tactic, but yeah, Ireland have a style.
They absolutely do have a style, without a doubt, and that's what Charlton wanted. He kind of wanted to make sure that everyone would be, not to bring people down to Ireland's level, because it's really unfair, because they had a lot of good technical players actually, and they just kind of thought, well, I need to get the ball forward as quick as possible, so this is how we're going to do it, and we'll just make chances this way. And it's like, can't really argue with that. Like, it's a style of play. There should be, everyone shouldn't just play the same. You should go, well, if that's the way you want to play, you've got to beat us.
No, it's fine. It's just when you're watching the game 32 years later.
Yeah.
I
think it's the back pass. I'll never ever get over the back pass stuff. It is terrible. I mean, really early on as well, the camera cuts to Bobby Robson, and it's not a great look for Bobby. He's got a look on his face like a man who's told a joke, and it has absolutely died on its arse, hasn't it? I mean, we wouldn't know anything about that on this podcast, so we'll just carry on.
Yeah. The commentator notes early on that Peter Shilton has recently come in for criticism. Has this ever not been the case? Have we ever seen him when it's like, well, he's solid, isn't he? And he's England's man.
I know.
It's either he's too young, he's too old, he's
Ray Clements is knocking around.
Ray Clements is knocking around, and the fighting for the jersey. I mean, he's got so many caps, but I've never seen him just be like declared, this guy's great.
Yeah, which is kind of what he's known as now. He's seen as being the great Peter Shilton, who's done so many great things for England and record appearance holder. I don't think it's broken even today, really, when the era of millions of friendlies and games.
Who do we have on commentary? So we have Laurie McMenemy
on co-coms, who we know from The Impossible Job. Yeah, he was one of Graham Taylor's assistants. Actually, he was always screaming Geordie in the background and with a big coat on. I think we've got Peter Brackley. I think is back as well.
Peter Brackley. Okay. Well, just a note on McMenemy. I think I'm not a big fan of his commentary. We'll get into it more.
Is it his style? Is it his delivery? What is it?
It's the words that he says and the way that he says them.
Everything about it. Audio.
I can't put it any clearer than that. I don't like the words he says, and I don't like the way that he says the words that he says. And now, listener, you might be thinking to this going, I completely relate listening to you talk, but I'm not commentating on a World Cup, mate.
No.
This is a podcast, and you know what? I could probably do better graphics than this Italian 90 as well.
I think we definitely could. Well, we get a little bit of commentary straight away.
Waddle now then for England. An excellent ball then for Lineker. Is this the first goal? It's gone in, scored. Glorious ball through. And Gary Lineker taking full advantage. Goal number 32 for the hero of the 1986 World Cup finals. And what a pass that was through that by Chris Waddle.
Goal! It's an early goal for England.
Never goes bad, does it? We always say.
Never, ever goes bad. Well, what do we have here? I've made jokes in the past about games being like, it's almost where you just, instead of like passing the ball or shooting or having shots or making plays and then getting the ball in the net, it's just like you're trying to just force it over with tackles.
Yeah.
And England's goal here is basically just pushing the ball over the line, isn't it? So England put a free kick into the box, which is cleared away. And while the Ireland team are looking to get back into the shape as the ball looks to be going out for a throw-in, it's kept in by Chris Waddle, who looks up and in fairness, he pings a great pass, even if it's a little bit rugby because it's a long pass for Lineker, who's running into the area. Pat Bonner comes darting out. He's not expecting Lineker to take an awful first touch on his stomach, but that awful first touch on his stomach takes it around the keeper, and then it's just a race with defenders chasing against him. And he can see, well, we can see on the thing, like the last frame of the goal breakdown I'm looking at is two defenders stood about 2 yards away from the line and Gary Lineker on the floor
in the goal,
and the ball and just like the ball's not even hit the back of the net. It's just stopped there, and it's just like, yeah. And we're back onto the commentary, I think.
Yeah. Firstly, Peter Brackley there, a panicked hello.
I know.
It's like, what? I don't know where that hello has come from. It's like, it doesn't not like, oh, hello, there's been a goal.
It's not like, hello.
Yeah, it's like,
it's like, oh, it's a goal. Hello.
It's more panic. It's like, hello.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It's like it's having a wank in someone. It's like someone's knocked on the door and he's like, hello. It's like, just a minute.
Hello. yes, just a minute. Yeah, it very, very much is, actually.
So panicked.
Yeah, McMenemy then goes on a long rant about, I don't know if we're going to keep this in because it's quite dull and boring, but he goes on a long rant about how much stick Robson has had, and he says that if nothing else, he's glad that goal has helped him learn how to smile once again.
I mean, what is that?
I know.
Learn how to smile again.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Shawn Michaels.
This man, good reference, this man is just winding down the clock until he can leave the job.
I know, yeah. There's also, like, listeners may have also heard a very odd noise in that clip. There's a little Italian stick man comes running across the screen, sliding like he scored and celebrating. It's so off-putting.
It's genuinely pathetic.
It's an awful noise as well. It's like a lemming or something.
It is, and what the hell?
Why put that in?
I know,
Eurosport.
Man. Yeah. They're trying to be cool and hip, but like
we've got our big tombstone graphics. Now we've got this little lad running across the pitch.
Where's the consistent branding, man? Like you've got this little Italian man. Like he's not say Italian man. He's like a man made of the Italy flag.
I think that was the logo for Italian 90. So they've clearly got some of the branding, but they've not been licensed their own. So they've just got the big tombstone, like it's a big King of the Ring promo or something. It's just like, what is this?
That's what I mean, man. Like, what about a big, massive tombstone in a field makes you think Italy?
Yeah. The World Cup, if it hadn't got the World Cup written across it as well. I mean, it's just terrible, isn't it?
God knows what the keeper was doing. But as we said, Lineker's touch was awful. It was effective.
It was effective, yeah. I mean, on the goal, nice pass by Waddle. God knows what Bonner was doing. It's in. Doesn't really matter. I mean, McMenemy says Ireland tend to miss out the middle of the field, which is that's a dig right there, isn't it?
Nearly spat out my drink there.
He also says that Gaz has lost 2 stone, stopped eating chocolate and drinking that funny stuff. I don't know if he's talking about Coca-Cola or beer or what.
Well, we mentioned earlier that Gaza had broke his way into this tournament.
Burst onto the scene.
He burst onto the scene. So he's a young man, but they're talking about him like he's like a 50-year-old obese person.
Yeah.
He's done really well, He's lost 2 stone.
Yeah.
They're drinking the funny stuff.
Like he's at Weight Watchers. Oh, Carol, well done. you got all your sins this week, didn't you? All your points.
What's the funny stuff? Is it like that water that clowns shoot out of the flower? Just a cup of that.
Is that what it is in the shops? Funny stuff. Can I have 2 boxes of funny stuff, please, and 1 Rolo? No Rolos, Gazza. You can't have the chocolate.
It's hilarious that England are going to the World Cup with a man who is like their like main hope mainly, and they're like going, well, he's done well to cut down on his drinking a little bit, like at the World Cup, man.
Like it's a massive problem. I mean, football drinking was such a big thing back here as well, but it's just like,
Just in hindsight,
yeah, it's just crazy, isn't
he's
it?
lost 2 stone.
I love it.
He's probably starving, man. It's not sustainable, is it? There, it's not a sustainable fitness regime.
No.
Another shite commentary moment. Laurie McMenemy says of Jack Charlton's pre-game comments. Now, this is what Jack Charlton was saying prior to this game, and his predictions for it. They'll tackle us, we'll fall over and get up. We'll tackle them, and they'll fall over and get up. To which McMenemy says, I think they should just let them get on with it.
Let who get on with it, though?
Let them get on with what?
Let
Just
them get on
fouling
with
each other?
Let them get on with being on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That sounds like Charlton's giving that interview like the end of like a long press day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what do you think of the game? It's like, I don't know. They're going to kick us and we're going to kick them back. I don't
Probably
know,
stand
really.
up after that. I don't
Anyway,
know.
it's at Eamon Dunphy. I'm off.
I think they should let them just get on with it as well. Just like no fells at all. That red card game back in
Red
the
card
day.
soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. You want that, don't you? I mean, we get a look at Brian Robson at one point as well. He's only 33. He looks like he's in his 40s at this point.
Well, it's carrying that England team on your back, I think.
He's on his back, his knees, his shoulders, everything. It's all falling apart. He looks like a dad who's on nights. You know, when you go around someone's house and it's like, don't wake my dad, he's on nights.
Yeah,
He'll go absolutely spare.
Yeah, he comes down in his like Harley Davidson t-shirt.
That he sleeps in, just in his pants. And he's just like,
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah.
work at 1 a.m.
Walks in and just turns the PlayStation off without saying anything.
Then lights off as he goes out as well.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't
lovely.
you wake the dog up.
Lovely Brian Robson. The goal has given England a little something in the step, though. There's a bit of we see lovely Gazza's
Shimmy.
a little bit of spark from him.
It's kind of like you don't recognise it until you see like Gascoigne receiving the ball kind of like on a half turn, passing it, then kind of running along after it as well, like a bit of a 1-2. Like it's so recognisable when you see it, but like it's I think it's a nice little move he kind of does at some points, and he's in the game quite a bit at this point.
There's a mention from Tyler, a quote I've made a note of. There'll be a lot of World Cup managers who are watching this game who rate England very highly, and they also want to see this new fella, Paul Gascoigne.
New fella.
So he had a lot of expectation, and he's doing really well with his weight.
With his weight.
Who would you say, Nick, is the last young player to set a World Cup alight, like the expectation was that Gascoigne may here?
You kind of look at. I mean, you really can't even call him a young player because I know he was only 19 at the time, but he was still such a prominent figure. You look at Mbappe at the last World Cup.
I think Mbappe at the last World Cup is a good answer.
But you kind of, when you see like people like Trent Alexander-Arnold getting nominated for like Young Player of the Year, and they've he's got 200 appearances for Liverpool. He's not really a young player anymore.
No, I agree. There was another option that I had in my head earlier. I wish I would have made a note of it though.
Okay.
Let's think back then. I mean, 2018 there wasn't really one outside of Mbappe, right?
No, I think looking down, because I think you get given like a FIFA Best Young Player award and all that. I mean, the last couple of winners have been Mbappe, as we said, Paul Pogba, Thomas Muller,
I was going to
say,
I think Thomas Muller, 2010.
he already seemed 28, didn't he? And
Yeah,
when he came
did.
in, he just always has looked that grizzled, hasn't he?
But he was young in that World Cup.
Yeah, he was young. I think in the previous year he'd been part of the Germany team who'd played England at the under-21 finals as well. So he was definitely young. But you look at someone maybe like Michael Owen as well, who really did come in with not a lot of expectations, but by the time he gets into the England team, he's just terrifying.
And he had the moment, didn't he, where Muller just kept scoring goals that were fine, but he didn't have that classic
breakout moment. Yeah.
Let's get back to the game then. So we're about 25 minutes in now. I have an observation, Nick. Okay. Ireland are awful.
They're awful. Is that what we're classing them as?
They are awful, mate.
To watch.
Yeah. I mean, whatever the results may say.
Yeah.
Why are they just kicking it so hard all the time and so high?
So hard and so high. Well, there'd always kind of been talk about whether Ireland actually were benefited or they were weakened by Charlton's tactics as well. The players say that they were happy to play this way because they were actually winning games for the first time. Like there'd been other Ireland teams that hadn't qualified for tournaments. You look at 82, I think it was, and they'd not qualified in a really tough group that we covered, I think, as well, against France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. and they played the right football, but they'd not got anywhere. So Charlton kind of came in and said, well, you got to do it my way, which I think is a real good way of looking at it.
Yeah. But yeah, is his way just kicking it really hard and high?
Well, I think the idea was if you get it forward quickly, you'd get it away from your own goal, which maybe he was worried about. I mean, the amount of clean sheets that he kept as Ireland manager is brilliant. But I think when you get forward, there are good players in that team. So maybe it's just get them. It's a bit kind of what Allardyce did at Bolton. He had a lot of good players up front. So actually it was, well, we get it into the area that's best affected. And then you get the quality as soon as you get a chance, basically.
Maybe I called them awful because tonight that game plan is being sabotaged. And we've teased it a few times, listener, but the wind is wild.
Yeah, the commentators are really bigging up the wind, aren't they? They've mentioned it more times than they've mentioned Peter Beardsley. I mean, what?
Yeah.
It's bad out there in terms of like, that, but we don't really see it because like the storm is kind of going on and it's affecting everything around them. But on the pitch, you can't really tell. So it's like, well, why are you telling us about stuff we can't see and isn't really affecting us? Like the wind is clearly being a problem on the pitch, but we can't see the wind.
This sounds a bit COVID conspiracy.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me about something I can't see?
It doesn't exist. What you want about? I can't see it, so it doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly. The wind doesn't exist. The wind's fake.
We get a mention of Terry Butcher, notorious England hard man. And it's just a little bit of a throwback to a recent game when he was subbed off during a warm-up game against Tunisia. And on his way off, he headbutted a Tunisia player.
Sorry, I remember they mentioned that in the commentary, and I was just like, "What? Like, can you give me a bit of context around this, please?"
I have the quote from the commentary.
Okay.
Talking about the incident. It was a little headbutting incident, which Butcher thought was exaggerated, and he was incensed at suggestions he should be sent home, and there was no danger of Robson doing that. I mean, who in their right mind would send off an incensed hard knock after he just headbutted someone whilst at work?
While he was subbed off,
Yeah.
so he's not even on the pitch, so he's got no involvement in football anymore. He's like, right, now's my time. Let's just go and headbutt some
he's-
Tunisian.
England, with their bad reputation, fans-wise,
Yeah.
and that going in, and they're just going... We have players who just headbutt people as well.
Not even on the pitch during the game when they're riled up or anything. This is when his part is finished as well.
More inane wind chatter coming up. Sorry, Nick. The commentary on this game is probably the worst commentary I've ever experienced on this podcast.
Yeah, even
the foreign comms, which I didn't understand.
But look at like the France one we did. We really liked that because it was quite fun. But yeah, this is terrible, is it? It's not a great duo, I don't think.
So this is McMenemy, and this is the most boring sentence I've ever heard said on a football game. So Ireland take a free kick. It's a decent delivery, probably one of the better ones so far, as I mentioned. I've been kicking about quite a lot. But this is the quote on it. This is the quote on it. A more intelligent delivery from that free kick. Even the throw-ins have been delivered much too forcefully. That was a nice little chop in. You can see the difference with that. He thought about it. You play golf, Peter. It's a difference between a 2 and a 3 iron and a 7, 8 or a 9. And they're starting to use those 8s or 9s to hit the ball, to use the wind instead of the wind spoiling everything.
Awful. Just don't want to hear any of this.
Just like going 7, 8s and 9s and 2, and instead of the 2s and 3s, they're using 7, 8s and 9s. It's like, shut up.
I don't like golf. Yeah. Don't want to know about it. Even though just because you two play golf together, I don't want it. It's like he's trying to explain it to the commentator who's next to him, who doesn't know what wind is, that he's in the same stadium as well. I mean, we get something else here. So Barkley pipes up now, and there's a little nugget about Shilton's record that we've just mentioned earlier.
Just a word on the official record. He does equal, as I said earlier on, Pat Jennings' record, 119 international appearances. But there is a gentleman from South Korea, Chu Son-ho, who reckons he's played 129. Now, World Soccer, which is a very highly regarded English magazine, says they can only find around 60. So somewhere along the line, he's played another 69 internationals that nobody knows about.
I think he gets one each half.
Olympic matches, perhaps.
He says at half-time to the manager, I've lost my cap, and they give him another one. So that's how he's got twice as many. But
well, FIFA aren't too convinced, apparently, and they're not actually taking too much notice of it yet. I think they've asked for an official confirmation from the South Koreans. We'll wait to see what happens.
we've got to send all the caps in an envelope.
Yeah.
But Menemy is so keen to butt in and give his fucking 2p opinion with that. I mean, just like, oh, well, those records, that what they do over there is just ridiculous, isn't it? They have no control. I mean, yes.
It's like it's written in the scripture as well. They go, it comes from such and such magazine. which is quite reputable actually. So I'm surprised they're covering this. And he's like,
well, I mean,
go on.
Don't get me wrong. 69 magical appearances is, in my opinion, far-fetched. I mean, that's fine. But, maybe they've got a secret home championships you don't know about. We've had about 1 billion of those games as well.
Yeah, that's very true. And the little quip that he would say to his boss at halftime, I think I'm going to need two caps for this one, Gaffer. I've lost the straps on that one or something like that.
That's awful.
Mate. Well, we've talked a lot about the commentary, and I don't think the...
Because there's nothing happening in the game is why. It's like there's so little.
Let's back to what happens. Oh, there's a big kick from Ireland hoofing it up the pitch again.
There's a big kick. That's it. Mark that down, everyone. There's a big kick.
But it's a notable big kick.
It is, yeah. So it's so big it goes to Peter Shilton in the other goal. I mean, that's an achievement right there. But Shilton rushes out to catch it. He's not really got like an Ireland player around him, but he comes out to try and catch it and take it on the edge of the area. I think he keeps it in. The referee blows up immediately. He's like, well, that's a handball outside the area. And McMenamin's like, oh, the crowd have given that.
I thought he kept it in as well.
I think he does, absolutely. And then it cuts to Bobby Robson, he's next to a very old man. Maybe it was his gravestone that was in the graphics. You never know, really. I mean, there's a man on the bench in a tracksuit shouting at the referee. He makes Bobby Robson look my age, and he looks at Brian Robson look like my son. He's so old, this man.
He's so old.
The glasses
and the lack of teeth, and just the kind of crouch.
I didn't realise the teeth. He's clearly like shouting, but his teeth were just being cut out of him as well.
Another McMenamism on this, So the free kick was given. Nothing much comes of it, and he says the discipline was good from England there. Naturally, a few hands went up as it was the wrong decision, but they didn't complain. They just asked, Mr. Referee, could you reconsider that decision? But when he didn't, they just got on with it.
I'm sure that's exactly what they said.
That verbatim quote there is it.
I'm going to get a lip reader from 1,000,000 miles away as well.
Oliver Twist playing for England.
And with that, and with the oldest man in the world and McMenemy, that's half time. And England have been in control, relatively speaking. We've mentioned the commentators are laying in thick about the weather, but I guess
what do you call control? I mean, just
not conceding a goal. They've kind of dealt with all of Ireland's like aerial prowess.
The wind has dealt with that.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's not
the wind is the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, probably actually, and I guess it is going to impact Ireland and their tactics with the ball in the air. I mean, kind of. Yeah, there's a beautiful bit in the documentary of Charlton where it shows the notes of Jack Charlton that's kind of written down. And on the notes, there's things like, don't let them settle, and all these like nice little quotes. And on one of them, there's a drawing of a goal area with arrows pointing towards it, like a cross with the words, big lads.
Big lads.
It just says big lads. There's no other word around it. It's like, that's where the big lads live, in the goal.
What does he do if he doesn't have big lads to call up to the squad?
He has big lads all the time. He's like Caesar. He must be surrounded by them. He will always have big lads in the squad. That's why he doesn't probably want to pick like some of the shorter players. I think Ray Houghton's quite short. I don't think Townsend's that tall. But that's why they're in midfield, because the ball's going over their head anyway. So when it comes back, they can kind of operate as kind of the more technical players, really.
I mean, to my mind, Algeria levels of this game.
I don't know. I've enjoyed it more than Algeria. Maybe because I was just watching it in a different headspace or something, and because I just
laugh at the graphics,
and because I just love Jack Charlton. So maybe just knowing this is it's his fault. This game is so bad. I kind of really enjoy it. But we've got to get back to it.
Welcome back to the Sant'Elia Stadium in Cagliari, and as you rejoin us, the second half is just underway, and we have a storm brewing here. Lightning crackling up above us as Gary Stevens hooks the ball clear. And it's now beginning to pour with rain to accompany the players, as well as the wind that they had to experience in the first half.
Okay, let's hope there's something humorous in this half to come out of nowhere, maybe.
Well, I assume as we've just heard on the commentary, that light cracking above us, not crapping, Peter. It sounds like he said that, but yeah. Speaking of crapping, Gary Lineker is holding his stomach early in the second half. Must be that foreign food he's been fed over in Italy. He should be fine. No need to mention it again, really.
Just an aside, that kind of links to both things you just said. When I was watching the recent England Nations League game against Italy, I noticed straight after kick-off, the ball was passed to Trent Alexander-Arnold, and the commentator went, Trent Alexander-Arnold there.
Oh God.
And I noticed it and I rewound it and I showed it Jen and she was like, yeah, he did say that. And then I thought, I'm smart, aren't I? Forgot about it. I saw it on Instagram like 2 days later with like 100,000 likes on the video.
Oh really?
I should have put it up for us, mate.
Oh yeah. What if we'd have just said Trent Alexander-Arnold and just left it as that?
Well, I think the thing was Trent Alexander what?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's always awkward when commentators do that because they just go shit, like they're panicking. But
so we've got crapping lightning. We've got Gary Lineker with a bad stomach. Trent Alexander arsehole.
who's not in the game?
And commentators going shit. Is that a chilling
Warning.
a chilling warning of what's to come
For the rest of the game, yeah. McMenemy seems to have really something weird about Gascoigne. Like the way he's talking about him, he's like a headmaster who's like, I like him. He's a good lad, but there's a problem with him. You know, we've just got to be careful. He's a smart lad, but he never uses it. It's like you can't like dare tell him that he actually likes him.
Yeah,
it'd like ruin the illusion and the unsaid things between people.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of, I don't know. The Gascoigne thing is not an easy one to address really, because not address but assess, because all of the concerns were actually right.
Yeah, when you look back, there are these things, but like there is ways of managing it with like Robson. Robson probably gets the best tune out of Gascoigne out of any England manager or any manager ever, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that, but yeah, he had his concerns as well at the start.
Yeah, you'll enjoy this. We're told that the storm has affected the TV monitor of McMenemy, so now the monitor is in black and white. Just for McMenemy, not for anybody else. So this must be some storm to make the monitor go through time, so it's now black and white. I mean, it's like Back to the Future or something. This is just crazy.
Yeah. And McMenemy, I mean, I'm not really learning much from him seeing the match in colour, so hopefully black and white he might be able to give us a better insight. Yeah,
hopefully. I mean, there's a clip that pops up as well now. Ireland got to make a substitution, and Alan McLaughlin's coming on. Maurice Setters is the assistant for Jack Charlton, who is, let's say, getting him warmed up.
It looks like he's bumming him.
Yeah, if we just say it like that, it is so strange. He is so close to him, behind him, and holding his hips.
Yeah,
like you just get on that bitch. It's just like, oh, this is horrible. And then like McLaughlin is clearly like bending over to do his laces up or something, but it's like, whoa, shorts. This is too much.
I know, yeah, kinky.
John
kinky
Aldridge,
1990.
John Aldridge is off now, so that was where that came from. In light of Jack Charlton making a substitute, Barkley muses if Bobby Robson will make one as well. We get a still of Bobby, but in the background we also get Steve Bull like looking on like a man who's never seen a camera before, and he instinctively it feels like he's just going to look at it and flick the V's up at the camera like a little naughty kid.
A proper Tipton bloke.
Yeah, he
does. Come on. He looks young, man, on this.
Yeah, I mean, 1990, I'm not sure how old he would have been, but he's playing for England a lot at the time, really. He was seen as the big impact substitute, wasn't he? And kind of a player like a Jack Grealish of today, of like the people were behind him to play more for England. But
yeah,
I guess in the system they were playing with kind of Barnes and Beardsley and Lineker, he just never really fit into the side. Like, couldn't really get him in there.
No, almost like what Ian Wright would become.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And in the midst of the excitement of Steve Bull seeing a lens for the first time, chaos is happening behind the scenes for our commentators, as due to the storm, we've lost Laurie McMenemy.
No!
Not to any horrible lightning disaster or anything like that. Seemingly his mic has just switched off through boredom, I'm assuming.
It switched itself off.
And we get the tones of a non-English language commentary in the background while Brackley's chatting as well.
Bobby Robson looking rather pensive, but with his team still in control. And his options on the substitutes bench include Steve Bull. So whether he might think about putting him on at some stage. I'll ask Laurie McMenemy in a moment. Chris Morris here for the Republic of Ireland. They're a goal down. Butcher's header.
Strange. Good replacement.
Yeah, just keep that.
An improvement, if you ask me.
Yeah, McMenemy just scrambling around. Oh, where's this going? And just crazy. I absolutely love it.
Back on the pitch, there's not much improvement. There's no room for any players to get into the game. You know, whenever somebody other than an Irish defender is on the ball, the players just have no room. They have lots of room because England is like, they're just going to kick it really high and hard and the wind will sort out the rest. Charlton wanted, you know, his teams to outwork the opposition and close them down. So, inventor of pressing.
Yeah. Well, definitely was invented in 2013, which is what everyone seems to think it was. So it's been around for a long time when he wanted to outwork teams and, like I said, don't let them settle, get amongst it. And it's always been a big thing of this Ireland side as well. They work their arses off all the time.
Arses.
Yeah.
We're nearly there. If anyone knows what's coming next, we're nearly there.
Bobby Robson looks to shore things up with Steve McMahon coming on for Beardsley. McMenemy says it will be a subtle difference with a striker off for a midfielder. So McMenemy's back and he's already going off on one. Very subtle. A midfielder on for a striker.
Yeah.
Changing formation. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
What's not so subtle is what happens next. And it's the return of the foreign food as Gary Lineker is in trouble.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you want to say it or shall I?
Lineker's on the floor and looks to have maybe pulled his groin or something. We later learn, of course, that he shot himself.
Oh, bollocks. I've shit myself.
Well, what a turn up for the Bucks, eh?
We've got something to talk
We've
about.
got something to talk about. Gary Lineker has shit himself
On the pitch,
on the pitch,
on camera.
on camera at the World Cup. Huge game.
Big game.
Big shits. Was it the foreign food then?
I don't know.
I think it was. I think it was the foreign food, and he'd kind of been feeling it earlier on, and he thought he could just I think he said that he got to half time and nothing had happened, and then he just thought, you know what, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
And he just overstretched for a ball, and all hell broke loose.
Well, I think early on we do see him hold his stomach at the start of the half, don't we? So
Yeah, yeah.
And it's weird the way he walks away. He kind of just like shakes his stomach a little bit as well. But it's like
You're not going to take yourself off though, are you? Until the moment you shit yourself.
just like doing like
Yeah.
that or something, like the rolling signal of sub off, please, boss.
Should have just done an Eric Dyer, didn't he? Pop off for a shit one time.
Maybe that does ring a bell. I think he came back from half time late because he was in the toilet. Maybe.
That's hilarious.
I know.
It's obviously potentially the most embarrassing thing that could ever happen to anyone, but Lineker sort of owned this over time, hasn't he? Kind of makes light of it on Twitter. He kind of, it's almost that 8 Mile thing of he'll say it so somebody else can't.
That's very true, actually.
He does get reminded of it quite often, though, for a man with a few million followers. It's bound to happen. There was actually a Vice article in 2016 where the reporter had interviewed people who regularly remind him of this on Twitter.
So they'd interviewed people who
Like
messaged him.
They'd look through his tweet responses, and some of the more prolific ones, they go, "You shit yourself."
Yeah.
Or you shat yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for using the right terms. Yeah.
They interviewed those people.
Right.
And I think they're a bit surprised to be interviewed, to be honest. Excuses range from doing it because I get bare numbers in it to doing it out of complete boredom just to pass the time at work.
Oh, God.
Another kind of public... I don't even know what to describe it.
A horror space. Let's say what it is.
Yeah, so I got my research about Gary Lineker shitting himself from a Daily Mail article. I apologise.
Yeah.
But it was the first one that came up, and I thought they usually are so long to keep you on the page. I should be able to get all the research that I need.
Yeah.
I went to the comment section.
I mean, always a bad choice.
So the article is on Gary. I'm going to read you a selection of beautiful comments.
Remember what it's about?
Yep. So it's about Gary Lineker shitting himself during this game, England's opening game at Italia 90 against Republic of Ireland. Kay Fenlon certainly changed my view of a bag of crisps. What does that mean?
No one knows.
View of a bag of crisps.
It's just like, what's he also do? Crisps. Yeah, just get that in there. Just get the hits in there. What else does he do?
Okay, Fenlon again. This Kay Fenlon again.
Oh, he's come back. He's got another witty response.
Unusual for anyone to spill carp from both ends, but Lineker manages it well. Carp.
Just my word. Does he work for the Mirror, this bloke?
Cornish Maiden comments, just what you want to read when eating your cereals.
I mean, you've opened the article. Clear what the headline is.
Shows what he's prepared to do to sell his story. Wow. I think this was just taken from Twitter comments as well. That he made.
Yeah, probably.
Not selling the story. Blew at heart, and now he just talks it.
Ooh, satire.
The Duke of Essex comments, always thought that Lineker is full of crup. Now he's confirmed it for us. Pity he can't tense his vocal cords to save us from even more. So we've had Carp and Krupp.
I mean, at least, is he doing? Yeah, I thought Krupp was him being like refusing to swear, maybe.
One more. I'm going to go with one more.
Yeah.
Jurgen Flop, writing in from Pep Floppiola in the United Kingdom. I don't know where that is.
No.
Jurgen Flop. Fuck.
This
Jesus
is
Christ.
Again, utterly witless. Just terrible, isn't it?
Well, I think you might disagree when I read you his comment.
Okay.
Pathetic, creepy lefty with a huge ego who thinks he's hilarious and much more important than he actually is.
I mean, this is a story about him shitting himself. I don't think he comes out well in it, and I don't think he tries to make it that he does either. I mean, you're bringing a lot of your own baggage into that conversation in the comments section, aren't you?
It is a hilarious story, though.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Tell you what, that one's 14 upvotes.
Oh, well.
Pathetic, creepy lefty. I mean, Christ. But yeah, that's the Gary Lineker story. The man who would go on to have an incredible England career.
One of England's greatest strikers ever.
Did shit himself on the pitch, and all these years later, Jurgen Flop from Pep Floppiola in the United Kingdom is laying the boot in.
Yeah.
Who would have known he'd turn out to be such a pathetic, creepy lefty?
I know, yeah.
Well, after that shit show, we go straight into another.
Maybe the Irish are expecting too much, but their spirits are a little dampened at the moment. Perhaps they can raise them with Sheedy here. Taken away though to McMahon, but Sheedy's back, and Sheedy scored! That will raise their spirits. No danger. Kevin Sheedy's strike after McMahon had failed to clear. And the Republic of Ireland are right back in this game now. It's 1-1.
That's got them singing and shouting and dancing. You know, that's what they would be doing 2 years ago, and that's what they've been doing in Dublin for so many games. And that's if they keep doing that, that will make such a difference to the team.
It's 1-1.
Shit show.
Yep, it's Kevin Sheedy for Ireland, 1-1. And after what seems like Ireland's 172nd long ball of the night, which England have dealt with, comes the goal. So long kick from Bonner, half cleared by England around the area. The ball kind of bustles its way to Steve McMahon, who's beaten to it by McLaughlin. And Kevin Sheedy races onto it and it hammers it into the bottom corner for the equaliser. It's so quick and it all happens so quickly. The cameraman can't even catch the goal as it's going in. It goes past the camera before it gets into the goal.
He punches the ball with his foot.
Oh, yeah, he really does, doesn't he?
Ireland kind of just tackle and tackle and tackle until there's just a bit of space and then he just drills it. I got to say, it's a nice hit. It's a good goal, really.
Yeah, and it kind of sums up Charlton's Ireland, really. Really direct, getting the ball at the pitch as quickly as possible. But when it gets there is quality in that Ireland team, which is what got them to this World Cup, the previous Euros. It got them to the next World Cup as well. I mean, again, they were a good side, but this is the way that Charlton thought that they could play and win games and get back into, you know, and be a force in a tournament at least too.
Yeah, well, we're quite a way into the game there, and they've equalised, and who's to say that they might not get a result now against England? England certainly haven't really threatened them that much, have they?
No, there's just nothing that's come from England at all, and kind of you find that Ireland are not playing the better football, but they're involved more, and they're kind of making the not chances, but they're into the areas where you go, oh crap, something could come from this.
Oh crap,
something could come from this. McMenemy's trying to make excuses for McMahon. He's like, it's hard coming on as a sub. He wasn't ready or warmed up. It's like, what are you going to say? It doesn't like storms. It's like, well, he's been warmed up long enough. Like, Robson's not just gone, you're on. Run on the pitch now.
Like a last minute number change.
Yeah. I mean, Gascoigne's kind of letting the situation get to him at this point. He starts picking fights all over the pitch, and there's a altercation just after the Irish goal, and he gets into a tussle with Chris Morris.
Is that about the day today?
No, not about the day today. I don't think it was funny at all. I didn't get it. Yeah. Bobby Robson has kind of made his mind up. Time to go attacking. Break glass in case of Steve Ball. He's on.
Wolves watch.
Wolverhampton, all right.
And it's Lineker coming off for our man.
I think we know why.
Yeah, apparently he went straight to the bench.
Oh, really?
Not straight to the shower.
A terrible lefty, eh?
And they made a lot of space for him. Pathetic, creepy lefty. He went off. He went off, and apparently he said to his colleagues on the bench, "I really hope Jurgen Flop isn't watching this game. I'll never be able to show my face in Pep Floppiola ever again."
There it is.
Is there? Okay, not long to go. Is there a late winner in this game for either side?
Are we in for a dramatic finale here? Charlton's throw. Gascarino. Robson who clears. McCarthy, cool and composed. As the second stick away. And just having an exchange of views there with Bobby Robson on the bench. And it's all over, and it's finished 1-1. Disappointment for England, really, after they'd taken the lead. The Irish fans are celebrating. They know how valuable that point could be. Lineker giving England the lead after 8 minutes, but then Kevin Sheedy with the equaliser in the second half for the Republic of Ireland. It's all square in Calgary. And we will have, after the break, full match analysis for you. But the final score in Calgary is England 1, the Republic of Ireland 1.
No, that's full time.
Shit show.
Yeah. A draw in an opening tournament game where England have taken the lead. Where have we heard this before? Seemingly every time.
Yeah. It did feel like England were just going to grind this out as a 1-0 win, so they'll be disappointed, but they can only really blame themselves and the wind.
Yeah, well, the wind helped them, then
The
it
wind
didn't help
helped
them. But
it's an excuse.
is it going the other way? So the second half, it wasn't helping them. It's quite hard to know. Even with all the weather chat, they've not really gone into it in enough detail to go, well, this is why this is happening. It's just, yeah, they've just got to let it go and just happen to them, have they? And we...
Let's have a look at the aftermath then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the media, can I surprise you, the media were not best pleased with this.
Well, we weren't pleased with it either, really, but...
I know, but I didn't already hate Bobby Robson.
That's true.
You know.
You don't hate him now, surely.
No.
Not Bobby.
No, I love Bobby. The Sun printed "Bring Them Home." Italy's Gazzetta del Sport went with a famous headline of "No football, please. We're British."
Clearly going down well with the Irish there.
Oh,
You know what you've done.
read the room.
Just not knowing, do they? And yeah, after the draw, the previously mentioned Eamon Dunphy wrote in the Irish Sunday Independent, "These islands have become football's third worlds."
Yeah.
I mean, that is a nice line,
It's a nice line,
but it's terrible as well.
it's strong.
Yeah.
But that is third world football.
And that is Eamon Dunphy. He
That
will
we've
just
seen.
he will just say that kind of stuff, won't he?
And the England players started to chime in and chirp up, trying to have their say and change in the team. They think changes need to be made.
Yeah. After the game, senior England players, who it's alleged to be Brian Robson, Chris Waddle, and Gary Lineker, persuaded Bobby Robson to switch to a back five and bring in Mark Wright as a sweeper against the Netherlands.
Right.
Bobby Robson would say that it was his own decision, and he did it because he didn't want to get ripped apart by Van Basten and Gullit, which he was successful in doing as the game ended 0-0. So,
Job's a good one.
yep, jobs are good, and you just move on from that. Back five worked.
Next for Ireland was a 0-0 draw against Egypt, meaning qualification for the knockout still hung in the balance for them. That game seen as an even worse game than this one. I mean, there's 2 less goals, and I'm presuming that nobody shit themselves in it. So,
Is it worse for that, or is it better?
Pac Bonner actually famously held on to the ball during that game for a total of 6 minutes in play, and that is one of the key reasons why the back pass law was later reviewed and abolished. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pat Bonner. That was a great thing that you did in that game, because you started getting rid of the rule that we've hate the most, really, and we can't understand why it's been so long coming.
So moving forward, England secured qualification with a 1-0 win over Egypt. Yes. Congratulations. Sweeper extraordinaire Mark Wright got the only goal for that. Ireland in their final group game drew 1-1 with Netherlands, aided by one of the worst goals you'll ever see at a tournament, with Niall Quinn's equaliser in that game. A point was good enough for both sides, with the Republic going through in the second... the Republic going through in second place in the group due to the drawing of lots, with Netherlands through as one of the best third place teams. The good old drawing of lots.
Just an awful way of going through in a tournament. And if people don't know, drawing of lots was basically it's just basically your name is drawn out of the bag or whatever it is about, and then the first one to come out just finishes above the other one.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Just knocked out by admin in some cases.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, Netherlands go through as one of the best third place teams, but they had a considerably more difficult side of the draw as well, because, Ireland played Romania in the first knockout stage for them, going through on penalties. Apparently, when a Romanian player came back after scoring his penalty, he told Daniel Timofti, who was up next, that Pat Bonner must have been injured because he wasn't really diving to save the penalties. He wasn't injured. It was just what Bonner was. And Bonner saved Timothy's penalty to allow the forgotten man, David O'Leary, to put the Irish through.
No way.
Brilliant.
No way.
Stories wherever you look.
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
isn't it?
It really is. So Jack being Jack, he gave the team a little reward for that win. They went to meet the Pope at Vatican City. Do you think he sorted that out? Do you think he called the Pope up and was like, Pope,
Personally,
it's JC.
onto the Pope line.
Yeah. And the Pope actually referred to Charlton as the boss during this meeting.
Yeah, which is it's a lovely little clip. And by the time we see Jack here, he is so popular in Ireland. He's been made an honorary Irish citizen, which was after Euro 88 actually. And I was watching Derry Girls the other week, and the sister running the school even has a picture of him on her desk because it's set in the 90s.
There's not really been a greater figure of Irish football, I think, since, really.
No, I mean, on managerial side, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously been great players like Roy Keane and Robbie Keane and lots of others that have come along and been, those points. But for a guy that took them from not to say, nothing, but their first ever tournaments and then to a World Cup quarter final as well, where no one expected them to do anything is incredible.
They get to the quarterfinal, as you mentioned, and unfortunately, Pat Bonner makes an error that leads to a goal for opponents Italy. And that's the only goal of the game.
Yeah. The loss didn't really matter at this point, as Ireland's first trip to a World Cup was seen as a resounding success. The video of the Irish players and staff singing after the game is amazing. It includes Townsend still wearing his Italy jersey from the game that he swapped, Jack Charlton singing, and the rest of the team and staff singing back to Jack as well.
The minute you made the Irish your soul, you gave us the pride to make us
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Emotional.
I love that so much. I would really recommend everyone seek out that Charlton documentary if you haven't watched it yet. It is lovely. And again, the access at that point is amazing.
I think the story continues as well, doesn't he? Did they go to 94 with Jack?
So they don't qualify for Euro 92, but they do go to World Cup 94 as well. And in the opening game, they get revenge over Italy and they beat them 1-0 in the USA as well, which is seen as Paul McGrath's greatest game and one of the greatest games ever from any footballer or any defender, really.
Well, we won't go too deep into England, but a quick sort of run through of their post-Ireland game. Obviously, we mentioned that they qualified from the group. And yeah, it's the tournament that really makes football what it is in England today in terms of popularity. Paul Gascoigne becomes an icon.
Yeah.
Gary Lineker becomes a hero. Bobby Robson gets to leave in, with his head held very much high.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And it kind of changes the way football's seen because it was a popular sport in England. It was probably the biggest sport in England, but it wasn't on the masses. Everybody watched it every week. I mean, you didn't have like live football games on every weekend at that point either. Sky were
Wasn't
showing
seen
a couple
for
of
everyone.
games. It wasn't for everyone
And
at all.
like the narratives and the stories that came out of this and the characters gave everyone something to latch on to.
Yeah, and we kind of look at England as they go through the tournament. It's equally magical as what Ireland did, and the stuff of folklore for a generation of fans. England bow out on penalties to West Germany in the semi-final. We'll get there one day.
Yeah. We've got the World Cup 2010 to go through first.
Oh, yeah.
Nick, not much else to say, my friend.
Yeah.
Was this England?
Bad game with lots of drama around it. Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
For me, this type of dire game is a bit of an England trademark. Even more recently, we had the Tunisia game in 2018. Luckily salvaged by a late winner, I'll give it that. 2020, we had the draw with Scotland. There's always one, isn't there?
Yeah, always seems to be one knocking around just to like dampen expectations a little bit after they've been put too high, most probably.
Well, Italia 90, we'll revisit one day.
We'll be back.
I am a bit worried if the football's this quality and we don't have Jack Charlton to talk about.
That's very true. Or Lauren McMenemy to pick on either.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, if you can leave us a 5-star review on any of the platforms that you listen to podcasts on, that would be amazing. If you want to get in touch with the show, tell us what you think about Jack Charlton. Tell us what you think about Gary Lineker shitting himself. Do whatever you want. You know, it's great to have a conversation with the listeners. You can reach us via email at isthisenglandpod@gmail.com. Or you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @isvis_England, where we post lovely pictures, videos, recaps, and all of that stuff. And as always, you could slide into our DMs if you like, except for you, Jurgen Flop.
Yeah, not allowed. Stay in, where was it, Floppiola or something he called himself?
From Pep Floppiola, that's his location.
Which one came first? Do you think he got... I think it was Jurgen Flop he'd thought of first. And he was like, well, I've got to do something. Where's he from?
Well, Jurgen Flop is a funnier... It's more of a pun, not funnier, but it's more of a clean pun than Floppiola.
I think Floppiola's funnier.
I mean, why didn't he call him Flop Guardiola? It's better.
I mean, it is better, but it's also like makes my eyes bleed when I think about it. So
thank you very much for listening, everybody. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do.